just going to give a little update and some of the pictures here, a couple of the highlights from the summer for me. It was a great summer. This was one of our chapels, and I'm not in this picture. I'm off to the side in the sound booth. And it was great this summer. I got to sit in pretty much every single chapel to help with the sound, to help kids hear the gospel. And you see all those kids, that was my view most of the days, was seeing the back of their heads. But all those kids in there got to hear the gospel. All those kids in there got to have a counselor instruct them, have a counselor show love towards them. And that was 5 days a week. That was my view right there. Another one got a little stretched out, but we were short-staffed. And so usually I was doing the IT stuff, doing the internet, doing the sound booth. But because we were short-staffed, I also helped run the gun range. And we shot about 6,000 rounds of 22 through single shots. But we also got to teach Bible lessons during that time. So one of the lessons we did, we played a game of knockout. So if you missed your shot on the target, you were out. But we wanted to make it harder as we went along every round. So we started them sitting, we went to standing. Then we started putting tree branches in their sights, between their eyes and their sights. We started putting leaves in their way. And they still had to shoot through that. And it was a great lesson for them because we were able to teach them, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on the target, or are you focusing on the tree branch in your sights? Are you focusing in your life on the distractions, or are you focusing on Christ? So that was 2 days a week for me. Another thing we did is we roofed the dining hall. The shingles were giving out, and in Alaska, you have earthquakes. Code has been updated, so we had to put in earthquake bracing into this roof. So we ripped off half the sheets. That's why there's sheets missing in that roof. We ripped off half the sheets to add earthquake bracing in. And we thought it was going to be a quick job before we found out we needed to add earthquake bracing. And just rip shingles off, put shingles on. But when you're ripping off half the sheets, that adds days into a job. But it was really neat to see the work team and the people of the camp just jump in and shingle this roof. And now it's not going to leak for years to come. And so then we can have more meals in that dining hall for years and years to come. Another one, this is part of my job, is putting internet to buildings. One of our volunteers, he lives in a cabin, and he comes up, he's 80 years old, he lives in Minnesota, but he comes up to Alaska for the winter to serve in the dining hall. And he cooks. And winter in Alaska is dark, and there's no cell service, and his cabin didn't have great internet. And so me and a work team, we dug a ditch through the woods there from one cabin that had internet to his so that he would have internet this winter. And you never know what you're gonna be doing as a missionary. You kind of have an idea, but that day we dug a ditch. And these are just some of the highlights from this summer of God using people like me who are not perfect, and using equipment that is not perfect, like the sound booth equipment that's old and failing, but God's word was still shared. And so if you've got any questions, or if you have our old prayer card, there's a new kid, Della, so we've got a new prayer card, so we'll have those in the back. And if you have any questions for us about this summer, or about what we're doing, we're back support raising, and so we'll be headed up there as soon as that's ended. So that's basically the only thing holding us back from being in Alaska is support raising. So that's why we're here. But God is working. He's working in Alaska. He's working through some wires, through shovels. He's working in the kids through rifles. But he's working in the hearts of these kids. I've got story after story of how kids who either were saved and they needed some extra help, or they need some instruction, or kids that weren't saved and that now are from this summer. So if you have any questions, please talk to us after church.
Well, good morning. So this is what Paul felt like all them years I sat over here, looking out of the crowd. No wonder why you shaked. I'm Gary Bennett, for some of you that don't know me. A lot of you probably know me. But I look out there and I see faces I don't remember or don't know. So that's a good thing, to see the church growing and still continuing on. And first, let me just tell you thanks for your support. We've been in the mission now for 9 years, almost 9 years. Come February, it'll be 9 years that we've been gone from home. And we just are so grateful that many of you have supported us individually, and others, and of course the church supports us. And we are just so thankful. And just a quick overview here. Let's see which way I'm going. I'm not as electronically savvy as. We do serve with Village Missions. Village Missions is as a home missions organization, and their goal is Village Missions exists to glorify Jesus Christ by developing spiritually vital churches in rural North America. And the key part of that is spiritually vital. We used to have the motto underneath there. You can see it says, helping country churches thrive. It used to be kind of survive. And that's kind of what we do, because a lot of our churches are just barely surviving. Many of them are about to close the door, which is the case in Red Cloud. They can't afford a full-time pastor. And if they can partner up with Village Missions, then they send us into these communities. So we get a pastor, the local church there, but they have to agree to let us be missionaries, which allows me to go into the community and to be a part in the community. And that's their focus of all the things that they track. They don't track a lot for us. And if you want to know what they track with us, they track one number particularly, and that is how much time we're spending with the people. And so they require us a certain amount of numbers a month to be out with the people. So it's a wonderful tool. But I also get a group of people that just don't know what to do with their church. And so we're in a city of Red Cloud. Let's see if I get that. Oh, so our charge then is to preach the word and love the people. It's simple. It's a simple charge. And hopefully we do that well. So we were in the city of Red Cloud, and we wanted to take a moment just to show you some of how your support is helping us in Red Cloud real quick. Because you guys give a lot to us over the years. Your prayers and your finances have been such a blessing to our church and to us. So one of the big things you did for us last year or the year before, we just got it completed, so we're kind of slow. You helped us remodel a bathroom in our house. Doesn't seem like much, but our people love to see us invest in their property as well. It brings us closer to them. And so, let me get here first. I did this backwards. Got to remember what I did this. One of the ways you help is with our kids program. Now, to understand the kids program, you look around here, I see lots of families. I've seen lots of people expecting children here. Our church is 8 people, 10 people, maybe 12. Probably we're still the babies in our church. We don't have kids in our church. But on Wednesday night, we do. And Your support helps that. A lot of our finances that come to us, because our church don't have finances, a lot of our finances directly go into things that we buy for patchwork in our youth program, cookies, pop, various things along that way. So here's some pictures of the patchwork. There's a smaller grouping. This is probably mostly about what we have this year, as a lot of these boys have returned, and they're all a little taller and a little older this year. But we tend to have a couple times a year where we have a program so we can get to know the parents. That's our biggest need, is how do we reach the parents? Because our age group, they go to churches. You get below me, they stop. And so you can be praying for that we find ways to get into their lives. The schools, all the things keep them so busy with other activities. They all got God, if you know what I mean. They all got God or a form of godliness, but they really don't know God. And so we're praying that we can get a breakthrough through some of the programs that we do with these kids. This is an after this year program where we have a hot dog feed and invite the parents to come and share hot dogs, and the kids do their little program for them. And so that was last year. Here's our high school kids. This is a lot of my pride and joy. Excuse me. Those kids don't have to come. See, the young people, parents drop them off. The big kids, the parents go, see you when you come home. And they're choosing to come. That's my joy. So, and we try to have fun. They got this old guy that can't run, can't jump, can't play ball, and has stupid rules. That most of these kids are pretty athletic and pretty competitive, and they hate my rules. So we do it. But that's some of the things that you guys are part of. You guys make that possible for us. And hopefully that generation will start filtering into the churches. That their love that they find on Wednesday night will be a love that they find on Sunday mornings as well. And maybe we can get to the community down the line a little deeper. And there's our VBS. We come together at the VBS. And this for sure would not happen if it wasn't for our church. 8 people. It's a community. All the churches come, but I think there's maybe 5, 6 people from all. There's 7 churches in Red Cloud, and we might get 5 or 6 helpers from the other churches to help with it. Everybody else is from our church and from our youth program that come and help. And so we reach those kids. You can see the high school kids, they do the skits and various things. So, and your decorations are a big part of that. And you can probably recognize some of those backgrounds. They were up here when I first came and got them. And those are several of our high school kids that were part of it. We've lost 3 of those kids. So we're going to need some replacements for next year. So be praying for that the kids below them will come up as well. There's some of the way we used your decorations within the facility that we use. Now the project I was talking about, the bathroom downstairs. On the left you'll see pictures of the old. On the right you'll see what we've been able to do. Zach was able to come and help us do some of this, and he did a lot of it, and we appreciate that. But again, maybe for you, you're thinking, how does that help ministry? It not only helps us as a family, right? We got places, a growing family. We have another bathroom they can use a little easier. But the church people, they see that and they go, wow. And it just helps you get into their lives. Investing in the things that they love. They love their church and they love their housing. They don't have much. And so that means a lot. This is the way it was. That was the old. The new is over here on the right-hand side. As I look at it, made it more spacious. Made it a little more fun. Again, different angles. Back there where the blue curtain on the left is was a closet. What we did is we pushed everything toward the closet. Made the shower on the right-hand side now as a shower, and just increased the space. Made everything look a little bit better. If you want a good view of it, you just have to come down and visit. Again, some more shots. There's the shower we put in, and I love it. That's my shower. And so God is good. You guys have been good to us. And so my wife had a little saying there, said it took longer than we thought, but this is such a wonderful improvement to the parsonage. Thank you for making it possible. And we do thank you. Everything that we do, as far as village missions goes, is made possible quite a bit from this church, or people that have passed through here. Some of our supporters were here when we started, and they have since went out to where God sent them as too. It seemed like everybody was leaving when we left there for a while. I'm glad it slowed down. But I wanted to just touch a little bit on home missions today. Home missions, I can tell you, not every church gets behind. A lot of churches out there, they don't get it. They don't get why people need to be in missions. They might get a Royal Kids Club thing a little bit, but it's a one-off type of a thing if you look at it that way. They get the one-off projects. I call it a mission. They might call it a project, but it's a mission to me. But they don't get what we do. They don't understand why in America do people need to go as missionaries to towns like Red Cloud. It's 1,000 people. Why should you have to have support? That town should be able to support its own church. And I agree. It would be nice. But our world isn't like that. And our rural country is becoming worse. I didn't realize, I lived in Henderson, or outside of Henderson, and when we were here, I didn't realize the different cultures just in 75 miles. A godly heritage is important. And Henderson has more of that than Red Cloud does. Red Cloud is very secular. And its biggest influence is Willa Cather. And it's a very liberal environment. Several of the churches in town are pretty liberal. Even the conservative churches like ours, the people in there, that environment creeps in. And they don't get it. You preach on things and they'll sit there and smile, but they really don't get it. They don't understand why we're against certain things or whatever. And so, again, we serve in Red Cloud, Nebraska, again, 75 miles south. But I appreciate you guys getting it. You understand what it was like. And that's to be commendable. That's to be commended. Along with serving at Red Cloud, we work with Village Missions. I'm a recruiter for Frontier School of the Bible by way of Village Missions. Trying to recruit people to come to Village Missions, but I get to go out and I get to spend time with students at Frontier a couple times a year, which is really helpful when you got students out there that are your own. And so I get to go to Frontier to see my kids and spend time with others. I don't know where everybody is at here with the age of your kids, but one thing I find is the churches aren't doing a very good job of making ministry an important value. To go out there, see the Zachs and Annas coming through with a desire to serve the Lord. I get to do that. Part of my job. Village Missions has asked me to come out and do a part of that. So I get to do that. I'm involved in a conference called CPR. It's a church planning and revitalization. Village Missions is the only one of the missions that are out there that is solely focused on revitalization. We're not church planning organization. We are revitalization. We don't want the churches to close. We want to keep them going. We want them to become vital. We want them to become strong, thriving. And you guys are my example a lot of times, because I look at this town. This is a town, a Village Missions town. About 50, 100 people, with a church that was once closed, that reopened. And now look at you. The consistency of keeping the church alive with the gospel and loving the people and preaching the word. And I've sat underneath that guy a long time over there that did that. And I am appreciative to that, and I'm trying to duplicate that. My kids sometimes will say, "You do a lot of Paul mannerisms." Maybe you guys recognize a couple of these. And he walked. And as he walked, he talked. Right? Or my kids' favorite one is crucifixion. One day they're praising the Lord, the next day they're crucify, crucify. And, these are all mannerisms that I picked up from Paul that sometimes get put into my thing that I didn't even realize I was being mentoring into. So thank you. And for just being consistent, because you mentored me without knowing it. And but anyway, if you're a parent, I would urge you to consider at least looking at the possibility of getting your kid at 1 year of Bible college when they graduate. Set them up for success. Success isn't in the world. Success is in their faith. And so that's, again, these are hard things for me sometimes to talk about, because my wife says, I was never a crier until I got to be a pastor. And when you're talking about things of God, it makes you cry. And it really does. So, but did you know that you guys are following Christ's example? He was a big believer in home missions. He sent his disciples into communities that they were in. And one such story is found in Mark 5 in 18 through 20. I just wanted to touch a little bit on that. You know the story. It's not an unfamiliar. If you've been in the church, you know this story a little bit. If you go back into chapter 4, you find one of my favorite stories. It's where Jesus tells his disciples, hey, we're going to go for a boat ride one evening. Hey, let's go for a boat ride. We're going to get out. Let's go in the boat. And they start going across the boat. Well, Jesus had a long day, and I get it. When you're tired, what do? You take a nap. So he goes down in the boat, and he takes a nap, right? And so he's resting in the bottom of the boat. And one of my favorite parts, the storm rises. If you remember the story, a storm arises and waves, and the disciples start to panic. They got the Savior with them, right? They got this guy that they've come to know named Jesus, and they say, we better go get him. So they go down there, and I think they're expecting to find him getting up, getting ready, and coming up ready to help them out. Instead, where do they find him? He's sleeping, and the favorite line in my book is resting on his pillow. He is sleeping comfortably in the boat on a pillow, nonetheless. And they wake him up, and he just gently gets up, and he calms the story, kind of chastises them for their unbelief and faith, and it calms down. And so then they go on across. And in chapter 5, we find what happens after they get across. They are immediately met by a man who's demon-possessed. comes out of the tombs. And he's not demon-possessed with one demon. He has a legion of them. He has a bunch of demons in him. And they know who Jesus is. And he comes out to meet him. And as the story goes, again, you know, you can glance through it. You know that Jesus takes care of the problem, right? He talks directly to the demons. And they say, well, we're legion. Don't cast us out. Let us go into the swine. Okay. Go into the swine. They went into the swine. They ran down the hill. And of course, were killed in the drowned. But the people of the city, when they went in and told them, they come back, and whether it was fear or what have you, they don't embrace Jesus. Right? You would think they would. Miracle like that, see a guy that you couldn't put chains on, that was violent, not only to others probably, but to himself. You would think, normal way of thinking, you would think, this guy's somebody I should pay attention to. We need him here. This guy, look what he did to this guy. They come back out and they go, no. We need you to leave. We want you to go. Just go. Get back in the boat and go. So he does. But his love for people, not wanting anyone to perish, he doesn't just leave. Oh, he does. But if you pick up the story here in verse 18, it says, and when he got into the boat, he who had been demon-possessed begged him that he might be with him. However, Jesus did not permit him, but said, go home to your friends and tell them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he has had compassion on you. And he departed and began to proclaim in Decapolis all that Jesus had done for him, and all marveled. Home missions. No, you don't get to go in the boat. I'm leaving to go in the boat. My mission is going this way. But I love the people, and I want you to stay in your land. Because you are going to be able to tell them about me. See? What does it take to be a missionary? You're sitting there going, well, how can I do that? I mean, maybe I can't do it. Yeah, you can. See, we are called into Village Missions. It's just an organization that we get to work with and it's targeted for specific places. But we're all called to our communities. We're all called to be that missionary in the land that God has put us. What do you have to be a missionary? Well, verse 18, if you look at it closely, it says you have to have a desire to follow Christ, don't you? To be a missionary, you have to have a desire to follow Christ. Do we have a desire? The man begged Jesus to let him go with him. That's the desire. I want to go with you. See, being in the ministry, a lot of times we see, and probably are guilty of it ourselves at times, of just falling into the trap of, I'm a Christian, I'm okay. And we lose that burning desire of maybe the freshness of our salvation. When we got excited and we went, you lose that. Just the other day in our church, just so you know that's not all negative in my world, we had a baptismal service. You guys are having one. We had one because I had 3 kids, shame on me, that I kind of forgot, hadn't been baptized. And they had been asking. I said, well, this year we're going to do it. So we did. And so 3 of my children were baptized. But that Sunday, we were working through the book of Joshua. And one of the things that happens in rural ministry is you've got the 10, 15 people out there the same. And it's easy sometimes just to preach and think, well, that touched absolutely nobody. Right? You don't know and you know that in your mind, but it can get that way. You just do the message, what God's put on your heart, and a lot of times, quite frankly, you don't even get a good message compliment walking out the door. you just leave and you go home and you have lunch and day goes on. But this Sunday we had some visitors, and they were from Arizona. They'd been there a couple weeks ago, earlier, and I didn't really expect to see them again because they were just passing through. Well, they were passing back through, and they had a niece in Hastings, and they liked what we did, so they stopped back in for church on Sunday morning again, and they brought this niece with her. And after the service, I was rushing out to go get changed so I could jump in cold water to baptize kids. And as I'm walking out the door, I'm hearing this wailing. I'm like, what's going on? And so I went and changed, and I come back, and they hadn't come out of the church yet. So I went in, and her aunt and uncle and her were sitting there, and I said, is there anything I can help you with? And they go, she was moved by what you preached this morning. Just a chapter out of Joshua, talking about obedience. And she said she wanted to know Jesus. And so we got to lead her to Christ that day. And I say she had the real kind of faith. She just, you could tell it took. And she looked at me and she says, what do I need to do to be baptized? She did not come prepared to be baptized. And I said, you've already done it. So we went outside, and so instead of 3, we had 4 people get baptized that Sunday. And her name is Kelsey. She's from Hastings, and trying to get her hooked into a church over there. So it's not so hard. She don't need to drive 45 miles down to Red Cloud. She needs to go to church right there. And so, but that's a mission field, right? That excitement that she had. Have you lost that? See, as believers, we need to maintain that. We have to find ways to stay excited, to beg, what can I do for you, God? I want to go with you. I want to be with you. Okay, so you have to have that desire. Secondly, in verse 19, then you have to know what the mission is. Okay? I can have all the desire in the world, but if I don't know what I'm supposed to do, it doesn't really matter, does it? So you begin asking, you begin seeking. He begged, and God told him in verse 19, go home to your friends and tell them what? The great things that the Lord has done. Didn't say go teach him the 100 theological words. Don't go teach him deep theology. Just tell him the great things that God has done for you. Just go tell him what God has done for you. So what does that look like? Y'all going, I don't have any great things that God has done for me lately. I'm just kind of bored in my life. I'm just wandering around. Well, you better think again. Okay? The question is, do you understand the great things the Lord's done? Think of salvation. The great thing the Lord has done for you. Jesus, the fact that Jesus died on a cross for our sins. According to the scriptures, he did. He was buried and he rose again on the 3rd day, according to the scriptures. You don't have a great thing to tell people? Do you get that? You understand what he did? See, the excitement of what we have, that great thing that God has done begins with salvation. We all have that. If you're a Christian here this morning, you have that. If you're not, I hope you get that. Don't leave home today without it, right? Find it. And I'm sure if each of us looked at our lives and see the great things, we can find lots of the great things that God has done. The fact that you have the abilities to make money. Deuteronomy 8 tells me that came from God too. You're not as smart as you think you are. God has given you the abilities and the talents that you do to make the money, to earn the things that you have. It's a great thing. Use it for his glory. Use it for him as the great hymn. To God be the glory, great things he has done. Right? All of you have that. Look at your lives. Look around. Don't get tied down in the negatives and the humdrums, but look at the great things that God has done, the way he's directed your lives. You can look back on it. I'm anxious. My kids, I'm anxious to watch what they do. And I look at what God did in my life and to see how he moved. You asked me 10 years ago if I'd been in Red Cloud, Nebraska, I would have went, why? Red Cloud, Nebraska is not a vacation hotspot. All right? It just isn't. It's not a place that most of you would choose to live even. You might spend a week or there and go, yeah, probably not. Because it's a hard place. It's a dark place, spiritually speaking. But folks, your best and most effective outreach is found right among your friends. And people need to hear what the great things God has done for you. It's simple. You don't have to be a great theologian. You don't have to be a Bible school major. You just have to know what Jesus did. And thirdly, to be a missionary, you have to be obedient then to the call. I can have a desire. I can know the great things God has done. But then I have to be obedient to call. See, you're not where you're at by accident. God placed you there. See, verse 20 sums it all up. Listen to what this man did. He says, and he departed. He didn't sit there and beg and go, I don't want to do that. No, not here. I don't want to stay in town. Lord, I want to do great things for you. I want to go. I want to do other things. He said, he just simply departed and began to proclaim in Decapolis and all that Jesus had done for him. And here's the kicker. All marveled at it. See, my story is insignificant. No, it's not. The things God has done for your life is not insignificant to the people that God is going to put before you and send you to. It's important. The story that we have and that we use in Red Cloud, it gets told over and over down there. Why? Because it's relevant to the lives of the people. Some need to know how God took me from a grocery store in Henderson and took that away from us and put us in village missions. People need to hear that because people go through that. Right? But look, see what God has done. The great things God has done. What seemed like a negative, God turns to a positive. Your story isn't that. So to be a great missionary, you need to have a desire, you need to know what the mission is, and then be obedient to the call. That's the tough part. The tough part is to go, that's my neighbor. I see him every day. What will he think? Well, maybe in this life he might think you're a little nuts. But when he stands in judgment, he'll either answer one way or the other. He'll say, I should have either listened. Or he might say, why didn't he tell me? See, when it comes to the eternal things, you might be the person they need to hear. So be obedient to the call. You're not where you're at by accident. So again, I'm going to wind this up by just saying thanks. Thank you for the time you've given us this morning. Thank you, Rick and Clayton and Paul and the mission team. And again, we thank you guys, all of you, for your prayers. The little prayer pamphlet, I'm glad you put that out because I know us. And I know in our mission, and I've got three that are serving in ministries that I know you guys help support. James, Ben, and Zach, and us. And I know the financial side is needed. And I know not everybody can support, or not everybody is called to support. Or whatever. Go where your heart is at. Support something. if you're able to. Okay, find what God has put in your heart. If it's a Royal Kids family, if it's the prison ministry, if there's things that you can do this morning, support it. If it's financially, get involved in somewhere. See what God will do. But more importantly, uphold them in prayer. Pray for places like Red Cloud. It's dark. And we need a breakthrough. That's what we need. We need to pray diligently for a breakthrough in Red Cloud. Because the enemy has a strong foothold there. Pray for Village Missions on a whole. We have 187 pastors out there, and some of them are young pastors with young kids, and they're in churches where they are preaching to their grandpas and grandmas, really. And that's all that's in the town a lot of times. And it gets lonely and it gets hard. So pray for them. Pray for Village Missions on a whole. That would make good decisions with the finances that they get. We have limited resources with many, many churches that need our help. We need pastors. If any of you are feeling like maybe God's calling me into ministry like I did 9 years ago, answer the call. Maybe Village Missions is one of them. Be willing to go. Pray that our church, in particularly, I know we're not supposed to pray this way, but I'm going to ask you to pray this way. Pray for growth, physical growth, just people that want to know the Lord. Financially, we struggle. We struggle keeping lights on every month. That's just where we're at. And again, your support goes beyond bathrooms. It buys paper, it buys ink, it buys Bibles. This gal that got saved didn't have a Bible. Your support made it possible for us to go and buy her a Bible and give it to her. But pray that God, I want our church to be vibrant like this one. You guys are my example a lot of times in my mind. I pray for this kind of revival type thing in Red Cloud. That we become the church that sends out the people, that we become the church that has the finances to help others and go. So join in that prayer as well. Pray for our family, right? We got a lot of young people, Zach and Anna, pray for them that they can get their support raised, please. If you're able to support them individually, get behind them. Ben's up there. They do a great work up there, even though they take my grandchildren up there. And for those of you that want to know, no, I do not like Alaska. So pray for them, though, because that's where God's calling them, and they'll need the prayer too. It's hard. Pray for James. You all know James, and pray for him down in ministry down there as they do their work. We've got kids in college, so we just need prayer for the family, that God will direct them all. Joanna's finishing her time out there, and we'll see where God takes her next. And it's exciting, but it's kind of scary for a daddy to know where they're all going. So pray for those kinds of things on a personal note. We've got a couple babies coming this year. Pray that they'll all come safely and develop well in all the things that you want for a child, and wisdom for their parents. Pray for Brenda and I that we won't become bogged down in the negatives, but that we'll be faithful to the work that God has sent us to. That you guys sent us out from our little pew down here that we lost. We're sitting on the wrong side today. But God, you guys send us out. And so pray for us that we just stay faithful and excited and renewed in what God has called us to do. And again, we'll be around, so you can visit with us and Zach and Anna as well. And we're only 75 miles south, and I say this every time I see any of you anywhere. When are you coming down to visit? We long to see our family, and you guys are all part of our family. So if you get a chance, and the church don't mind too badly here, come visit us on a Sunday. Spark something with us, because our people need to see you and see vibrant people alive and well. So you're welcome anytime to do that. So that is all I have this morning. So I know I probably went way long because that's what I do. So thanks for being with me.
I don't know whether you pay much attention to it or not, but there is a rhythm in a worship service, and at Stockholm we close with a song, because you'll remember a song. You won't remember the messages very long, I know that. You may remember Rick, but I know, the song you remember, and it just happened to be the one that Gary used a lot in his message. To God be the glory. If you could and are able, I'd like you to stand, and we'll sing this and close with a benediction. Welcome, John. I'd like you to join me in prayer and a closing benediction, if you would, please. Father, I've been challenged. It's so good to see people I've known for much of my life and how you have them out serving. And may we be aware, Lord, as a sending church here at Stockholm, that our finances and what we give to our missionaries is important for them and for us. And so it's been a good morning, and I know they have needs, our missionaries do. And I pray, Lord, that you'd use us as a church to help meet those needs. And now may the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up your countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen. God bless you. Good day. Stay and visit if you can. Thank you.